Hi, welcome to the Golf Psychology Podcast. I'm Dr. Patrick Cohn here with Brock McCormack. We're continuing our series on pre-round mental preparation for golfers. We're also going to talk about post-round assessment later in the series as well. You're watching the Golf Psychology Podcast.
Today, we're going to talk about setting good objectives for your round of golf. What should we focus on throughout our round? And what should we maybe not focus on?
Yeah, let's start with the nots. What shouldn't golfers focus on when they go out and play? And then we'll get into some good objectives.
Yeah, well, the first thing that we talked about last episode that's always worth revisiting is focusing on outcomes and scoring, focusing on trying to make a cut, trying to hit it, make a certain amount of putts per round. Any outcome-based objectives are going to be very distracting.
Yeah, and also certainly focusing too much on score, focusing too much on what your competitors are scoring, focusing too much on your competitors, period, right? We can also say not having a game plan or a course strategy and how you're going to attack the course.
Yeah, so let's talk about how do we reframe where our focus should be instead of thinking about the outcomes, because in golf, it's very easy for our focus to drift towards score. It's a natural habit of golfers. We want to focus on more manageable objectives that are in our control during our round. So these are examples of staying present, committing to your pre-shot routine, committing to each shot, focusing on your target and letting it happen and trusting your swing. Some good examples there.
Well, yeah, so the bottom line, I think, if we look at the broader picture, is we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. Let's start from the perspective on the tee box. You absolutely want to think about, okay, what's my plan for the hole? Pin's on the left, it's a par 4, I want to be on the right side. So there needs to be a strategy to begin with and what you're going to do. Then I think, Brock, then we need to get even more narrow. Okay, let's get to the tee shot. We've got the strategy for the tee shot. Now it's about those small objectives that you mentioned. That's the most important objectives. It's not about score. It's not about making birdie on that par 5 when you're on the tee box, right? It's more about what are those small objectives. For me, it's the things within the routine that the golfer is going to execute. And I break it down into you need to do your homework, you need to have your plan for the shot, you need to do your planning and programming, which we talked about in a previous video about visualizing your shot. And then you need to go through the execution part. So let's talk a little bit about the planning section, the planning and programming objectives, and then we'll get into the actual execution objectives.
Yeah, I mean, just like you mentioned, the biggest planning objectives that we need to emphasize is picking a smart target. Is Bob Rotella says, have a conservative strategy and a cocky swing. Is pick a target that you know you can hit, the fattest part of the fairway, a smart target that plays to your shot shape and the strengths of your game. And that is going to help you feel confident and trusting going into your golf shot. Is you need to feel fully committed to this golf shot or else it's not worth hitting.
Well, we want every shot to be worth hitting. Those obviously feed into the execution, right? It's like a funnel. Now, as we get up over the ball, the objectives are going to be way more narrow. Why? Because we've got a plan. We've committed to the plan, right? We've visualized the shot. Really, all the planning and programming is done. We don't want any humming and hawing over the ball at that point. So if you're going to step up to the ball, stick with the plan, correct? Then when I say it gets more narrow, Brock, I mean the execution now. You're only going to focus on setup and that one swing thought, which can be an objective for the round, right? When I think of a swing thought, it doesn't necessarily have to be something about the swing. It could be, I'm going to focus on the target and let it rip, or I'm going to grip it and rip it. For a visual player or learner, it would be focusing more on seeing the target, seeing the shot shape, and that could be an objective in and of itself.
Yeah, absolutely. So our goal here is to keep your thinking as simple as possible over the ball is we want to do all of our planning ahead of time so that when we address the golf ball, we're very natural and athletic with our shot. That we don't want to overthink technique or second guess ourselves over the ball. That we want to address the ball, look at our target, pause, and swing. We want to try to keep it as quick as possible so we're not having excessive swing thoughts as we're trying to execute the golf shot.
Great stuff, Brock. And I think we want to decide on some of those objectives. Don't go crazy with the objectives. Maybe have an early objective in your pre-shot and then a later objective in your pre-shot, right? Maybe 2 objectives for full shot, 2 objectives for putting, 2 objectives for pitching and chipping. Let's not get out of hand with it. All right, very good. Thanks for joining us on the Golf Psychology Podcast. For more tips and strategies, jump over to Sports Psychology Golf, our golf-specific website, where you can watch other videos, listen to podcasts, and read lots of articles over there. All right, Brock, thanks for joining me on the Golf Psychology Podcast.